Hey guys, it's your boy here, RickyAnalog, StockTraders.net. I just want to do a trade recap today from the trade I had with CLWT. So you can see the daily chart right here, and I'm not gonna lie, I made some rookie mistakes today on this that should have been one of those trades that makes my whole month, and that's just not acceptable. So what better way to memorialize it than public shame? And at the same time, I hope some of you guys can also learn from this as well. So first, let's give some pretext. We have been seeing some really crazy, stupid runners lately. That, let's see if I can find some of them. So we had IMTE, we had, what was some of the other ones? BOXL, we had, today was VVPR, and of course we had CLWT. And so one of those weeks where these chasers, are getting ballsy, and they're seeing that when they work together, they truly can throw a heap of trash halfway to the moon. On top of that, borrows have been so hard to come by lately, and it's not just me. I'm over at Wedbush with Lightspeed. I have interactive brokers, but I've been hearing it from everybody, even people at Vision through Centerpoint. Seems like Trade Zero seems to have them a little more often, which is kind of funny. But they've been extremely hard to come by. So just after lunchtime, CLWT started to gear up and look like it wanted to be next. And I could go into detail on the fundamentals of what makes this thing a Class A piece of garbage, but there's really no need. When we get times like these, all it takes is a low float and volume, and plus, all you really have to do is look at the daily chart, and you can see the levels to the left show that this thing never holds its gains. It's clearly a turd. But it should also be noted it's a 5-cent ticker. I rarely play those. I hate them, but I do make exceptions from time to time, especially when the situation gets extreme enough. So let's get right into the trade. Hopefully you guys can see this okay. You can see the first entries were around, what time was that? 145, 140, something like that. So once it broke $4.50, that was when I got interested in it. When I realized I had access to locates and they were cheap, I'm sure my face was similar to some guy stuck in the desert thinking he found a water fountain. So with my freshly procured shares, I was off to see levels where I would like to do business. And I started thinking, anything over 5 looks promising. But as soon as I started making my grandiose plans for the short, it started to look really weak when it couldn't clear those 485s. And without even stopping to think about the overall market environment that we're in with these micros, I put a small position on at 450. I figured I could scalp it back to the 5-minute 20, and as I sat in the position, I started to realize that my entry was most likely premature. But since I was small and I only had about 40 cents of risk, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm going to let it stay on for a bit. And I ended up taking off half at 435 just to lower my risk a little and at the same time lock a little bit in. Like I said, I was small. This was kind of like, I don't even know what the hell I was doing getting in. And then I took the rest off for break even. Let's see if I can zoom in a little. Right here, I took the rest off 450 when it busted. And it was a good cover. I mean, I didn't want to be in this anyway. I don't know why I got in early. If you know me, guys, I rarely get stuck on front sides of these movers. I'm really patient, and I have a strategy I like to think keeps me off the front sides of these. But I'm going to use this opportunity to show you guys that even I can make mistakes, and hopefully we learn from them. So fast forward. Well, basically I was telling myself, all right, I'm fine. I'm in the clear. All I need to do is go back to being the patient lion that I am and stalk my prey. Skip forward 2 minutes. Boom. Back in at 5:15. It was like I blinked and someone else was in the office pushing my buttons. I immediately tried to take it off on the first wash below 5, and there was a bunch of other shorts that had the same plan. Everybody's trying to grab the same covers as me. The price jumped back up, and it pushed up, stuffed 6, and then it was like, all right, if this cracks the high that it just put in, if it gets back over 6, I'm taking it off. So I stopped out for a small paper cut, 615, which is $1 loss. But like I said, I was really, really small. I don't even know what the hell I was doing in this trade at those points. And it was actually kind of surprising to me that I let that happen. And then some reason it cracked again. I jumped back in at 590. And I stopped out again at 675. And so now, I'm sitting here and I've racked up 3 FOMO trades and 2 paper cuts. And so we're going to pause the story right there and go over the main takeaways from the first half of this CLWT saga. So first thing I want to note is that not a single one of the entries that I took on this frontside part was due to a valid trigger. Every single one of them was a version of a FOMO trade or another. And so I'm trying to figure out what were the causes, right? Well, if you ask me, when you look at the daily chart, that actually causes you to have this crazy conviction that you probably wouldn't have if the daily chart didn't look like that. And so, looking at the daily chart, all I kept thinking was this thing always gives back its gains, and it created this feeling of take it at the first sign of weakness. One of the other things that I think caused this was the getting caught up in the myth of this is up too much. I can't remember how much it was up when it was at like 5. Let's see. It started the run, like the previous day's close looks like it was like 225. So at $5, it should have been up 100%. So, it wasn't like I'm shorting something that's just up 50%, 60%, but still, like, you guys know me by now. You know that I'm very adamant about preaching that nothing's up too much. Like yesterday, we watched IMTE go up over 1,000%. So this being up 100% is no excuse. I think the third thing that helped cause this problem was the fact that low gates have been so hard to get lately that I think I was actually overly anxious to use them or want to use them when I finally got some. So these aren't excuses. This is me just trying to talk through it on the mental side, like the psychological aspects of it that possibly caused this. And I think that about covers it. So now we can kind of move on to the backside of the trade. And another one of the takeaways we'll come back and touch on is how the mistakes on the front side caused more mistakes on the backside. So you see, I actually put on a short here at, what was this, 7, I can actually look up the exact price, 745. Yeah, it's a 5-cent ticker, so I guess I don't have to guess too much. 745, I put it back on. And this one was actually the first trade where my strategy gave me a valid trigger. Not one to use like a lot of size, but it was a valid trigger nonetheless. And you can see I took it off at break even. And there was absolutely zero reason to take it off. So that was mistake number 1, was getting out of a trade where I had a great position. You can see I put it back on when I realized that I shouldn't have taken it off. What was that, at 685? And then I had a perfect add at 735. It was almost like the top tick of that candle. And I took it all off for break even. So it's 2 trades now I've put on the backside, and I took them off for break even. And you can see both times when it cracked again and I realized what I had done, I put them back on. Now, it was correct to put them back on. It was not correct to take them off. So I believe, look, I took 625 and I added 640 maybe. Yeah, 640. Now, once I realized that I had been taking them off without justification, like I shouldn't have been taking them off, not only that, but you see this level here at 635. The break of that was actually a whole nother trigger all in itself. So now I've gotten 2 triggers. So I do have the confidence now to be in this trade with defined risk and the ability to sit in this and let it play out. And that's exactly, you can see that's what I did. So I think I had a 640, no, what did I have, 635 average or something. And I covered the first half at 550, and I took the rest off at 5. So it was a great trade on the backside. I took over $1 a share on this, and when something's up that crazy amount and I get valid triggers, there is a very, very high probability this is going to play out the way I want it to, and I should be putting on massive size, as large as I can get. I mean, and if you guys have your own strategies, I hope you have back tested them and you know your win rates and you know your expectancy. But on this trade, this has an 85 to 90% win rate when you get these triggers and you have this context. And context is everything. So this one met all the parameters I needed, other than the fact it was a 5-cent ticker. And so I wasn't going to write it off because of that. But you can see right here, when we get this push back up into 7s, I didn't add. And do you know why I didn't add? Well, I guess we'll get back to that later. So here you go. Here's a trade where, because I screwed up on the front side, it caused errors on the backside also. And you know what this trade was? It was a wash for me. I should have made my whole month's salary on this one trade, and it was a break-even trade for me. And now tomorrow we'll have to wait and see what the market brings. But one of the major takeaways I want to tell you guys on the backside is that when you make these stupid mistakes on the front side and you take these paper cuts, one, I hope you take your paper cuts. Don't add to the front. Don't keep adding. Look, I could have definitely added all the way up to 8, and I would have probably made very good money on this trade. But you aren't guaranteed that. This thing could have been the next Black Swan. You know, we could have had another KBIO, AQXP. We could, you know, everybody is familiar with the Black Swans we've had. Could have had another one, and I didn't need to be part of that, and neither do you. So take your bruises, take your lumps, and then live to fight another day. That's rule number 1. But don't even enter early. Stop entering early. And this goes for me too. Like, I'm very upset with myself for taking this trade this whole way up. All of these were stupid. And in fact, there was a very beautiful long trigger right here at 485. It was a little hard to take that, seeing as the psych level 5 was right in front of it. But look at the upside it had after that. Once it broke 5, over $3 of upside. So here I am stuck in a stupid short bias, bearish bias on this trade, and couldn't see the long sitting right in front of me, and then instead took some really stupid early paper cuts. And what happens is you take these early paper cuts and it creates these problems on the backside. So one, kept cutting a trade break even because I'm already down slightly on the trade and I don't want to make things worse. That's the dumbest thing, because you have to fully acknowledge to yourself when you take a trade that each trade is completely independent of the previous trade. All those stupid paper cuts I took on the way up have zero to do with this trade on the way down. They had to have been taken in a vacuum, completely separate, and I didn't do that. And therefore, that was why I was cutting them break even, and I kept, I would take them off and think about it and go, what in the hell am I thinking? And then I'd put it back on. The worst thing I did, though, was when I had the second trigger and I took the trade, and when I finally had the epiphany that, oh my God, this is an A+ trade, this is something that should be paying my bills this month, I did not add when I had the chance, and I could have put major size on. Right here at 7, very, very low probability this thing's going back to high day, which would have been where I would have had to stop out. And you know what? When you have a win rate of 85%, you need to put the risk on and allow that chance, that 15% chance you're going to stop out and maybe take a pretty decent sized lump. But 85% of the time, it's going to pay you and pay you well. And if I had have stuck to my plan and added where I needed to add, this one would have paid well, even with the paper cuts on the front. So that's the takeaway from CLWT. I hope you guys can learn from it. I know I am. It will be something stained on my memory for the next few days. And back at it tomorrow morning, ready to crush it, ready to see everybody at the 9:05 Stock Talk with hopefully a brand new game plan, ready to attack the day. And until then, everybody stay safe out there. Keep on crushing it. Peace.